Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon. Michigan football on this Tuesday, April the 4th. College basketball over last night. It's always a shift. If April turning the calendar didn't do it for you, if you're a sports fan, and you live through the sporting seasons, one came to an end last night in college hoops, and now we turn the page and move on. And for some people, it's college sports is what it's all about, and then they're just like, okay, wake me up in September when college football starts. Now that's pretty drastic. But there are a lot of people like that. They don't enjoy the pros or baseball or golf, for instance, the Masters. I like how it works. Jim Nantz saying his farewell last night, and they play one shining moment, and then you look in how things work this week. You've got opening day for the Tigers. It's like their one day maybe of the year this year that's going to be a celebration. That's going to take place on Thursday, but you got the Masters Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the NBA and NHL playoffs, which will take a lot of us to June. I like watching those. I like college football, number one out of everything. And then, college basketball, the NCAA tournament is right there. Those are my top two things, but I like pro basketball and I like the NHL. And oh yeah, also on Thursday, how quickly I forget, we also have the Frozen Four. Thursday is going to be an outstanding day. Now that you think about it, opening day for the Tigers, the first round of the Masters, and then Michigan taking on Quinnipiac in the Frozen Four. All right, man. Now things are looking out for Michigan. Well, what are we talking about today? Well, we're always saying we're talking about the latest in Michigan sports. I've got a question for you regarding recruiting. I'm still looking back to Saturday, and yesterday identified 5 players that I wanted to talk about the most during the, that jumped out the most to me during the spring game on Saturday. And there were quite a few players where, you start ranking things. It's not that difficult. I don't make it sound like it's a real tough chore or anything. But, as I started ranking, I'm like, yeah, I got to leave that guy. I got to leave that guy out. I got to leave that guy out. So I thought, why not come back? I had my 5 initial standouts yesterday. Now I come back over the top, and I've got 5 more standouts from the spring game. That's what I have on tap for you. I also have a question if you're watching this live. And if you're somebody that watches the replays, I appreciate that. Whether it's the podcast or the VCast, but if you ever want to get in while this is going on, you'll notice if you listen to it that I'm responding to the feedback in real time, so you can be part of the show. And today I have a question for all of you out there, and it's about recruiting. Jaden Davis was the apple of everybody's eye, and it was like, the constant, like, Jaden Davis, what's going to happen with Davis? When's it going to happen? And then it happened. Jaden Davis committed on Friday, and recruiting continues on, as you know. But if you had to name one player that you wanted the most now, because Davis, I think for a lot of us was the one. Get Jaden Davis. That's the one. And I think that he would have led any kind of poll about the player that you want to get the most. I mean, quarterback, highly rated, all of those things. But now I'm not so sure that we'll get anywhere close to a consensus. But it's interesting. I had the first player that came to mind for me was a running back. And so I'll get to that. But I want to ask you, who's the one recruit that you want the most now? It doesn't have to be like a 5-star, the most highly rated guy. I'm just asking you the question. Who's the one recruit you want the most now? So you can respond to that as we get into the spring game and the 5 more standouts that we have. Account 22 is first in on this Tuesday, and he's talking about the Ohio State offensive line. Now, there's never a bad time to look ahead to Michigan, Ohio State, and the way things have gone the last 2 years, and the position that Michigan is in right now, and how they are battling the Buckeyes in recruiting and coming out on top. It is, it's a great time to be alive and a great time to be a Michigan football fan in this rivalry. And Account 22 is salivating at the OSU offensive line after watching Michigan. Let's see. Andres says, if you want to talk golf, Dennis, I'm your guy. Oh, wait, that's not this kind of show. Well, Andres, I've said this a few times. Let me say it again. 98% of the time, if you go back and watch every video from the first 2 years that I've done this, I think it holds up. 98% of the time, I'm talking about Michigan. 1% of the time, I'm talking about something else in sports. And another 1%, the other 1% on that 98 is, something non-sports. In the summer last year, I presented my top 10 TV series of all time. So, I mix in a little bit of golf. I know people, they come here specifically for Michigan sports, and that's fine. I remember the last time, I don't remember what I was talking about. If I think about it, maybe I will. But OT, who shows up, and then here he is. OT, here he is. He's it's great. Speak of the devil. I don't remember what I was talking about, but it was sports, but it wasn't Michigan. Maybe it was baseball or the NFL or something. Oh, it was. Now that I've talked through it, I remember. It actually had a Michigan connection to it. The NFL playoffs were going on, and I looked all through the NFL rosters and the coaching staffs, and any former Michigan player that was in the playoffs, I put the matchup up for the playoffs, and I put the coaching staffs, and I went through it. And OT got on and said, I thought this was a Michigan pod. I don't want to hear about the NFL. And, he came at me. I was like, all right, there you go. I don't mind people coming after me a little bit. And OT did that day, and I had to tell him, 98% of the time it's Michigan, 1% it's other sports, and then 1% even something else. But I do remember that. He just wanted to get the Michigan sports. He's like, let's go. I'm rooting for Rory and Zalatoris. I don't want to make myself sound like I'm some big gambler or anything, but since I hit big in the playoffs and with fantasy league football, I've got some money to play with, and I put $1 on Zalatoris, which I think pays $38 if it wins. So that's a nice return. I like Zalatoris and Rory. So I want Rory or Zally to win it, and then I've got a 5-player. What do they call that? Kind of fantasy league. 5 players against, and I go up against 2 other ones. It makes the Masters is already fun, but it makes it even that much more fun. So that's it. I'm really pouring. I pull for Rory. I never mind Tiger doing anything. But so Rory and Zally, that's who I want to take care of it. Speaking of OT, here he is. He wants Underwood from Belleville, and it's not even close. Well, I get that, and I didn't designate, what year, which is absolutely fine. I kind of get it. What's Underwood's first name? Bryce Underwood. He will be a junior. So he's only a sophomore in high school. He will be a junior. He's not a 24 recruit. He's a 25. And an OT says that's the one that he wants. Now that's a long ways out. There was a good discussion about Underwood today on the Maize and Blue Review with somebody asking Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, if the Jaden Davis commitment will affect Underwood. And the long and short of it is everything affects everything. And if you're a quarterback, of course, it's going to affect you. Now, the situation, we don't even know, some guys as a freshman quarterback saying, hey, I want to come in and I want to play. immediately. And it used to be, I don't know, I remember when it happened, so I could say it, but it's only been about 5 years. Previous to that, you would say, hey, true freshman quarterback, they're not expecting to come in at big time programs. And there were some that ended up happening a lot of times because of injuries or whatever else. And they would get their shot and it would happen. But then something changed. And what changed was Nick Saban. Nick Saban, he had Jalen Hurts going as a freshman, but then he pulled out Hurts, remember, in the championship game, and put the true freshman Tua in. And that was a pretty big deal when he went about it. And so, here all of a sudden, I can remember that it was the same year Michigan was having issues with their quarterback, and I made the suggestion that maybe they should start Dylan McCaffrey in a game. And I was doing a talk show and people were calling up, you're crazy, that kid would get killed, putting him in. I'm like, if you're a true freshman, let's go. Let's forget about, the quarterback part. And then it was at the same year or the year after that Dabo Swinney had Trevor Lawrence, and yet he had a senior quarterback that I believe took him to the college football playoffs, but he told Lawrence wanted to play. And by, I don't know, it wasn't the very first game, but it wasn't very long. He was putting him in there. Or did he start him? And then he got hurt and the backup came in. I'm trying to think now. Did he start Lawrence from game one, which upset, or was they playing both of them? Now I forget. But the point is that it's changed now. If you're a freshman quarterback, you can, whether you can make the demands, whether the coach says, hey, we'll let you compete, or we'll actually, go ahead and put you out there. And I think let's look at Michigan's situation. JJ McCarthy, Michigan 2 years ago, it was pretty clear that Harbaugh said that, you could compete, and that not only that, I'll guess because I don't know exactly what Harbaugh told him, but I think that Harbaugh said, not only can you compete, we'll play you. We'll play you in situationally. And that's what he did. And with, JJ was pretty fabulous right off the bat, including, the 69-yard touchdown to Baldwin in his first game, scrambling around, throwing it across the field. And from there, sprinkling him in. You could say it backfired, and it felt like it did a little bit against Michigan State on the road when Michigan lost that game. But 37-33 in East Lansing, but coming back and running the table, as you know by now, and getting to the college football playoff and beating Ohio State on the way, people aren't dwelling, certainly, or looking back and criticizing Harbaugh for playing McCarthy too much or at all against Michigan State. And I know, just take it from me, if Michigan did not beat Ohio State, or they did not beat Penn State that year and lost to Ohio State 2 years ago, there would be a lot of talk about Harbaugh blowing it up in East Lansing by putting McCarthy out there. So I don't know. Is Underwood, do you make the promise? Like, let's see. JJ's a junior. So next year, JJ's going to be a senior. So the idea is if McCarthy plays so well this year that he may decide to go pro, there is a chance that happens. Well, Michigan has a great season and McCarthy has a great season. Oh, you'd love to see him stay around, but you also wow, that's great. But you've got to have Jaden Davis there as a true freshman. And do you say to Underwood, hey, you can come in and compete and we'll play with you? Do you make that promise if you're Jim Harbaugh, like he did, I assume, to JJ McCarthy? Yes, I do, to get him. I will, but I don't want to do it too much, because you play too and it can screw you up and it can backfire you, but you do have to make certain allowances nowadays to get top players. And, the game has changed. Just like you gotta play. If you're not playing, guys, it's free agency. They can be out of here. Heck, if they don't like the situation like Hunter Dickinson, they can just be like, I'm out. Peace. Hey, I'm a starter. I'm the I've been the face of Michigan basketball for 3 years. I'm one of the star players in the country. Peace. I'm out of here. We know that it can happen just like that. So I think with Underwood, it would affect it. I mean, if he's looking for a place, yeah. Here's the thing: if you're Underwood, certainly you look at the depth charts, and then you could see somebody that like is a senior that's going pro, and you can just be like, you know what? I'll pick that place because I can come in and I can play immediately and I can start. Where at the very most, I would think that he would be just getting some time as a true freshman with Jaden Davis as a true sophomore. And then, after that, I don't know how much it'd be sprinkling them in. But great programs are able to bring in great quarterbacks and highly rated quarterbacks in each class. Alabama does it all the time. So does Clemson. So does Ohio State. Michigan is right there knocking on the door with all of that. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. I'm with you, OT. I like that one, although he was not the guy that I picked. Hey, we got Rory Love. I like it. Andre's laughing at me for bringing up Dylan McCaffrey. I got burned on McCaffrey in that, once in a while, I would say things about Michigan football, and I would get a lot of picks, especially Michigan State fans, would come at me like, oh, you say the most ridiculous things. When it came down to McCaffrey, I did say a ridiculous thing. I hadn't sat in the stands. I've sat in the stands like 3 times in 30 years, but one of those times was Michigan playing Nebraska. I think McCaffrey was a freshman. And I was going to sit up in the press box, but I was at a pregame out on the golf course, doing this, talking to Michigan fans. And the guy came up, and I had my friend with me who was just going to go into the stadium. And it was a perfect fall day, like, I don't know, 55 degrees and sunny. And he said, hey, do you want to sit in the stands? And I did. But so sitting in the stands and then watching McCaffrey launched a, I don't know, 50-yard touchdown. He would have run for another one and got called back. And I declared after that game that he was the most, I was the most excited to see the McCaffrey era, since Drew Henson, which, it wasn't that outlandish of a statement, but all these Michigan State fans, oh my God, but what happened with the Michigan quarterbacks, it was like I kept saying this. Because then after that, I was like, I'm really excited to see Milton. And then, before that, I was excited, about Shea Patterson, and I was in on the nickname of the Shavior, and all of those things. So the point is that it was a rocky road there for a while with the Michigan quarterbacks. Hey, I really like Peters. Oops. I really like McCaffrey. It was just one after the other. And I really thought McCaffrey was going to be like McCarthy. That's what I thought he was going to be able to do. That's what I was expecting. And obviously that did not happen. But, JJ now has arrived and has been able to stabilize the position. He's able to put Michigan in the mix. The amazing part is that he was a part of it 2 years ago, but it was actually Cade McNamara that was able to guide Michigan behind the running game, which nobody would have predicted that's how Michigan was going to turn things around, was via the ground and in a punishing running game and toughness. That's the way they were going to be able to break through against Ohio State. If you would have told me that before 2021, I would have laughed. In fact, I did, because Josh Gaddis was in an off-season news conference, and one of the first questions, to him was, what's going to be important coming up for the Michigan offense and speed and space. And Gaddis pulled out the oldest of old cliches that you can have as a coach, and he said, especially at Michigan, he said, we're going to run the football. It's like, oh, okay, is that what he's coming out with? So, yeah, McCaffrey, I thought he was going to be the one. OT is right on it. He's like these other schools. They stack the quarterbacks. Iron sharpens iron. Yeah, Michigan's at the point now where they're they're one of the top 5 programs in the country. They should be recruiting as one of the top 5 programs in the country. And when you're doing that, that means you are taking 5-star quarterbacks annually. And would you? It's fine to be able to do that, and you want to do that. Is it better? Would it be better if you could say, "Hey, what would be better if Underwood, was a 26, but he's not. He's a 25, and so he's down the road, and you still want him. So that's it." Scott saying JJ is an NFL first-round draft choice. I think so too. The question is, Scott, he's a little bit underrated right now, JJ, I think nationally, because you look back to these previous 2 years, and it was McNamara as the starter 2 years ago. And JJ was fabulous last year, but not from start to finish. He was actually a little shaky against Maryland, if you remember. But, man, he was improving. He protected the football. But then he had the one thing that you needed to see from him that you wondered if it was going to be a hole in his game, and that was the downfield passing game. And while, at Rutgers, he had some guys that, could have helped him out catching the ball. I think about the Illinois game, the one that he put down in the left corner right at the goal line to Andrell Anthony. Anthony went up, put his hand, it went right through his hands. He does that, and we're not talking about it as much, but, when they needed him to break out and be a great quarterback, he played one of the greatest games ever against Ohio State in that game. So, it was he was tremendous down at Ohio State, and part of that was his right arm. So yeah, but I think he's underrated, and that nationally people look at Michigan, they're like, they're just a running team. They're going to want to run it all the time. They're running it, with Corum and Edwards, and there's some truth to that. That's going to protect JJ a little bit, and he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to throw the ball 40 times a game. I can recall rewatching the Ohio State game, as I have a few times, that they're into the third quarter, and Gus Johnson puts the graph up, or maybe he just says it. Well, it's a completely different game plan for Michigan now. If they have thrown the ball more than they've run it, you're like, whoa. And they hadn't really had any yardage on the ground without Corum. And, Edwards was there, and, they were still like, wow, Michigan's going to have to do it on the right arm of McCarthy. But then, McCarthy started running it and throwing it. And then at the end, Edwards had what did he have? A 75-yard run and an 85-yard run. And he ended up with over 200 yards against Ohio State, 216 yards against the Buckeyes. So that's it. Scott wanting to go back to the MSU game, saying that it was a coaching loss. Let me think about that. I think defensively, Mike McDonald got outflanked a little bit by the MSU coaching staff. You got to give credit over there to the green and white, the way that they were sitting on those personnel changes. That was big. The loss. So that is a factor. The number one reason that Michigan lost to Michigan State 2 years ago was K9. So you could call that a coaching loss, but K9, how many touchdowns did he score? 5? I mean, he put on one of the greatest performances of all time sometimes, and it's easy to do now. When I tip my cap to K9. K9 was a great back, and he had his greatest game, against Michigan. That was the biggest factor. And somehow the Michigan defense, when they're up 16, gave up 2 back-to-back 8-point drives that was involved with 4 reviews, a 4th down. And I mean, it was one of the most amazing games. It was a great game. What I recall in that game also is that what was the score? It was it 33-33 or 30-30, maybe it was 30-30. It was tied in the second half, and I sat back. I said, no matter what happens, and I knew it was a lie, even as I said it, no matter what happens in this game, this has been a great game. This is a great college football game. Well, Michigan lost a game, and it didn't seem like such a great game, but it did at the time. But I see what you're saying. And Scott, I'll go through. Anytime Michigan loses a game, it feels like it's on the coach. It feels like it's a coaching loss. So you can almost always throw that one out there. But I did think the defense was, in particular, McDonald, and which goes back to Harbaugh. They weren't ready. They weren't ready for K9, and they weren't ready for those quick changes of personnel that Michigan State worked on them. We have a run of Scott today, which we like because he makes good points. Can Jaden Davis start immediately if JJ leaves after this season? So a true freshman starting. From what I saw, what are we talking about? Davis Warren, Alex Orji, or now I'm going to Devin Gardner, once he called him AO. I kind of like that nickname. AO or Davis Warren or Jaden Davis? I really want McCarthy. I know this isn't answering the question, but I really want McCarthy to come back. Because I don't want to see Jaden Davis going up against Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers. I want to see J.J. McCarthy against Arch Manning at Michigan Stadium. I know we got this upcoming season, to think about, but if I am looking towards 24, but I'm ready. I'm not ready to cross the if Jaden Davis can start immediately bridge yet. But so let me, instead of milling about and avoiding the question, I'm going to say yes. Okay, there you go. Woo! Look at OT. That's a hot take. This is pretty hot, OT. You got to admit. Underwood would beat out Davis even as a freshman. I mean, I don't know. Like, you love Underwood, you like Davis, but I don't know. Who knows? You could be right about that. I think next year, starting to make my plans, here for the Masters and opening day and Michigan hockey this week. I'm making my plans for the fall on Fridays. I'm going to get out to some Belleville games. Go see Beasley. Go see Underwood. Go see whoever the new coach is in there at Belleville. I'm in. Who's with me? Let's get down to Belleville and watch some games. Like I said, today is Scott's day. And he's asking, remember when the Detroit Lions were alternating Greg Landry and Bill Munson? I don't. The Landry days were before my time. I don't remember. I do know that everybody used to say that Matt Stafford's the best quarterback for the Lions since Greg Landry. And I was like, well, what's that mean? You got Eric Hipple and, all these Andre Ware and you can just keep going. Gary Danielson, all these QBs. So, big deal. But so I don't remember. I do remember that. Was it Wayne Fonts? However it worked. So did they have Rodney Peete and Andre Ware and Eric Hipple? Like, they had all three of them as QBs. Maybe they just had two of them. But the owner called up Andre Ware on his answering machine to tell him he was going to get his first start ever. The only problem is he called Rodney Peete. And it was Rodney Pete's answering machine. He was like, William Clay Ford, congratulations, Andre. Oops. That was a little mistake that went down. It might have been a different quarter. I think it was Ware, though. I'm not sure who the other one was. But that's a funny story in Lions history. Let's see what some others have to say before I get to my five. You could, and I think you would be accurate today, saying I thought you were going to talk about 5 more additional players in the spring game, and you're talking about all kinds of different things. I like going to the feedback. People have, a lot of times, they spring up things in my mind, and we go to it. And AM is saying it's possible that JJ stays for a senior season. There's competition come 25. If JJ leaves and orgy develops, AO can be QB1 in 24. I don't think that's crazy talk. I think there's absolutely a world for AO in 25. Let's go through some of the best case scenarios here. Best case scenario, Michigan wins it all next year. JJ plays well, but he's looked at, I don't know, like Michigan runs the ball so well that, Mel Kiper comes out and declares JJ McCarthy as a second-round quarterback. I don't know. He might even be whatever it is, but he decides to stay for his senior season. Michigan wins the championship, and then JJ is going to come back. I mean, it's very possible that could happen. And if we're talking about, what are we even talking about right now? A 50-50 situation? I would put it more at like a 60-40. And I think more highly of JJ than most other people. I think if you talk to NFL people right now, they would say, he's got to really show a little bit more with his arm, and which I think is true. But I think that he can, you saw him making those throws in the spring games, zip, NFL throws. He's got that in him. Plus, he's mobile. But he could stay around for a senior season. And then Davis, you just see him a little bit here and there. And then he's a sophomore. And then you bring Underwood in and you let both of these guys compete. Harbaugh says, let's go. Sharon Morby. Hey, these two guys are going to compete. And, we're going to play whoever's best. You can say, what about AO? Like, hey, he can compete. He can compete for the job. Let's take some more feedback, and then we'll get to the additional top 5 players. Right? Let's get to Victor, who we hadn't heard from today. But Victor is saying that Orgy's accuracy has greatly improved from year 1 to year 2, given very limited sample size. Just needs to work on decision making and mastering the offense, and it could be it. We'll see. Yeah, I haven't seen enough. Last year I saw him, as a in for spring true freshman, and he was very impressive. In fact, I like how he threw the football. It looked good, sometimes you're watching a guy, he throws a nice football. But I didn't see any downfield passing game, last year. But I saw the strong run, like where they had him on a 4th and 1 behind the sticks, and he broke out. And then I saw him this year, blasting guys and running around a little bit. I haven't seen enough of Orgy as a passer. Physically, he looks great, and running and the mobility, he looks great. And so I don't know about his accuracy and his passing acumen and all. I don't know. You might be right. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. Eddie talking NIL. Pay JJ some big bucks. Keep him for his senior season. Take Jaden under his wing. Yeah. Yeah, I think NIL, when you're getting to, guys that are like 3rd rounders, 4th rounders, you can definitely compete. 1st round money, woo! That's going to be tough. That's some tough NIL. But, it's also like if you're a fringe 1st rounder and NIL, you can get a pretty good NIL deal. And then if you're JJ and you take a next step and you move yourself into the top 10 or something, top 5, that's a big amount of money. So that's going to play out. We know that. Let's do it. Scott was talking about, JJ staying for his senior season, signed Drew Henson. Oh, I remember the day. Actually, I remember it was back-to-back seasons because, Henson broke his foot right around this time. It was right before the NCAA tournament. You heard about it. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? This is gonna suck. And so he wasn't able to play for the non-conference season. That would have been the year 2000, and his first game that he played was a game that I went to. It was at Illinois, a night game in Champaign. And Henson in that game, Navarro played the first three games. And that game against Illinois and all the stuff like, oh, Henson's great. Henson's great. Henson was great. I mean, he was great in that game. And then, he took on Drew Brees in a game, and he was great in that game. Michigan lost it. That sucked. And then they lost at Northwestern in a shootout where they put up 50 points, I think. I think those were their only two losses that year. Henson was great in all those games. So, yeah, Henson was going to be, like there was no, people look back and say, oh, Henson, it wasn't all that. Henson was all of that. The two games he lost, they had nothing to do with him. And, he was going to be a great into his senior season. And if he would have gone to the NFL after his junior year, he'd have been a first-round draft pick. Vic may have gone in front of him, but who else? Brees, he was going to go in front of Brees. Brees was too short. I think Henson would have been a first-round pick. People get confused about that because of Brady and everything else. Like, Carr was playing his buddy. Henson was great. That's why he was playing him. Tom Brady wasn't too shabby either. All right. Now we're into some off-season stuff. Let's go. Spring game, 5 more standouts. If you missed yesterday's show, I suggest going back and watching it. It was a good one. But I will run through the players that I had mentioned yesterday. Derek Moore was on the 5 that absolutely stood out to me. Josiah Stewart as well. He was fabulous. Kenneth Grant was great. 6'3", 356, running around like a linebacker. Come on now. This guy's a monster. Benjamin Hall stole the show as a true freshman. This guy might redshirt for Michigan, if you think about it. Khalil Mullings is as big, and I don't know how many reps Hall's going to get. Maybe he'll play, maybe, but I don't know. You've got the one-armed bandit and Blake Corum, and you also have Khalil Mullings. I don't know. Maybe you get some carries for him, but maybe he redshirts, but he was fabulous on Saturday. And then number 1 was Peyton O'Leary. He's in the mix. There's no down. Anybody that's, we talked about it yesterday, downplaying his performance, like, go back and watch the tape. What didn't you like? Did he catch too many? Was he catching too many passes for you? Running too many crisp routes? Looking too good out there? Yeah, you work in that it's a spring game. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 option, but I think he plays. I think he's going to be a factor next year from what I saw on Saturday. I liked it. And he's 6'3". I like he's, a little possession receiver out there. And, he's back shouldering it, using his size, using his quickness, caught one down on the goal line. Looked pretty good. All right, let's get to the next 5. And that is our today's. And don't forget, with all the recruiting and everything else, like the basketball portal and what Juwan Howard's task, there's a lot going on there. You can know immediately by joining the Maize and Blue Review today. There's a great deal going on. I said I was going to present that today, and I forgot, but it's there. Check it out, michigan.rivals.com. We'll see you over there. All right, the 5 for today. How about the true freshman out of St. Louis, Frederick Moore, number 82 in your program? Let a depth at wide receiver in where he figures in with Samaj Morgan. And then, we didn't see much Tyler Morris, but, you've got Darius Clemens. I mean, wide receiver is really stacked, but I like what I saw from Moore. 5 targets, 4 catches, had that 41-yarder, enough where he's in the next 5 in standouts from Saturday. Number 4. is one of the Magnificent Seven. And as a transfer, Ernest Hausman. He looked every bit of 6'2", 228, but he was around the ball. And he looked every bit of the part of a rock-solid linebacker, run stuffer, playmaker. 4 solos, 4 assists, a TFL, a forced fumble. And after the game, he sold programs. I don't know, man. Hausman, an impressive debut in the Maize and Blue with everybody seeing him out there. What a player. Like, if you're like, I like this Hausman, you hear everybody, oh, you really like Hausman. I can see why they say they like him. He looked fabulous. That's why he is also on the list. I feel like I'm a little selfish with Myles Pollard. Not that he didn't look good on Saturday. I thought he did. But if you recall last year, he was down on the goal line, and I mentioned it. He was with Will Johnson, and there was on a 4th and 1, and it was right down where I was standing, and I thought, man, Will Johnson looked awesome on that play, and so did 24. And I had to look down like, who's 24? Oh, he's out of Tennessee. Pollard looked very polished, and he was in for spring last year as a true freshman. You know, what do they call that? Mid-termer. That's what Harbaugh always calls him. But I really liked what I saw from Pollard technique just on that one. So I became a fan of his. So I was watching him again. Didn't see him much, last year in real time. But, here he was. I have down that he had an INT. He did. He picked off Davis Warren. He was out there, and he like bluffed Warren and came up with the interception. Also had a tackle in there. I like Myles Pollard, and he made my 5 more. It's not going to be a surprise if he's out there playing and if he's a factor with Michigan in the secondary. I don't know what he looks like in the other 14 practices last year or the other 14 practices this year, but I like him. Every time I see him, I'm like, hey, Pollard looks pretty good. I think they called a pass interference on him when he got his feet tangled with Clemens, and I thought that was a bad DPI called against Pollard. But I have to admit, I am biased towards Myles Pollard. I really like him. And 2 more. A freshman corner, Jyaire Hill. What wasn't there to not like about Hill? He had 4 tackles, and he came up on one where it was a wide receiver caught it. He come up and he stuck him. You like a corner that'll put his nose in there and play the run, and he was able to do that and then tackle the wide receiver physically. 6'2", 175. He's got the measurables. He's fast. He's physical. Hill, at some point out there at corner, sure. Possibly, a guy that could be in the 2 deep. Yes. I saw it. And he had an interception. Tuttle, it was a free play, but don't go throw the ball as a laser 20 yards down the field on a free play. Throw it way down the field. That's usually what quarterbacks do, just in case they don't, or if it's your offensive lineman that's flinching. But Hill keyed in there, and he would have had an interception there. Good hands. I mean, great debut. Spring game, in for spring. Jyaire Hill, love him. Number 1 to me on the 5 more standouts. And he's somebody that we have seen. But I'm putting Rayshaun Benny down there. Rayshaun Benny had a tremendous game. 6 tackles, a sack, 2 TFL, 6'4", 292. He is ready. And if you come away, I don't know what you came away with, but I came away with the Michigan front 7. Actually, the entire Michigan defense is fabulous. And they're going to pick up right where they left off last year. They got playmakers all over the place. And Josiah Stewart, I think everybody's really excited about. I think Jalen Harrell, I don't know if I wouldn't say people are sleeping on him, but a lot of people are like, Stewart's going to be that guy that's going to be the sack master. No, it'll be McGregor. Maybe. Harrell's the one. That's my pick to be the sack master for Michigan and to be the leader of the Michigan defense. And, at these edge guys, though they are solid. Michigan is solid. But then on the inside, we know what Mason Graham brings to the table as a true freshman. And then Kenneth Grant, the way he played on Saturday. Look, do I sound like I might be going overboard a little bit? It sounds like it, and yet I don't think it is. Michigan's good, and we know about Graham. We actually know about Grant, and then what I saw on Saturday, this wasn't like, hey, it was a spring game. Grant was taking guys, and he was like throwing them across the field. He was like going through guys, slamming them to. I'm like this guy's a monster. He could have knocked J.J. McCarthy into next week if he wanted to. They pulled up a couple times on him. And then I mentioned the guy's, he's a monster. Feel really good about Graham and Grant. And, Chris Jenkins, who anybody that you talk with is talking about, well, he's the undisputed leader up front. We saw how he played last year. I mean, look, Chris Jenkins is fabulous. They lose Mozzie Smith. I think Rayshaun Benny, I don't know if I was a little question just because I hadn't seen him play as much. But I got back-to-back plays that I want to show you. And Rayshaun Benny is playing, whether it's defensive tackle or nose guard, looks like a defensive tackle, but he's just he's lined up on the left side, and he makes back-to-back plays. And let's go to the tape, and let's watch him. We take you to the Michigan spring game, and we're looking for number 26 on the defensive line. There's Coach Edwards and Coach Corum during the game. As I said, Benny, he'll put his arm up here. He puts his arm up. You'll see him. There it is. He put his right arm up in the way. Nobody, he just goes in here. Look at him. Sheds the blocker and then gets in on the tackle. Boom. Ends him down there. He was there along with Moten. Now they're trash talking orgy a little bit. Rayshaun Benny in on the tackle there. Looked pretty good. This is the one. There again, you're 6'3", 292 pounds. You get in there. There's Coach Edwards talking to Jim Harbaugh. Likes how the defense is playing. Saying, hey, I can't believe we got an embarrassment of riches. They had him mic'd up. Look at Benny here. He gets in here. He just throws his guy aside. This is what you like to see from a defensive lineman. That's what I like to see. He's in there. Got him held up. Boom. Right into the backfield. That's a TFL. That's Rayshaun Benny. That's number 26. Look at this guy. Look at that Chris Jones from the Chiefs right there. Can't block him. Hold guys up. Jumping into the backfield. There was nothing like there by 26. A monster. Hey, what's up? David Ajabo. Hey, what's up, Brooke Fletcher? No, what's up, Brooke Fletcher? 2 stars. Right there. Those are the 5 that I came away with. Benny and Brooke Fletcher. Give her an honorary star for interviewing David Ajabo down there. She did a great job. She's a star as well. We'll take some feedback. Andre's indicating that Michigan needs a possession receiver in Bell's absence. Good point. And could that be, whenever you have like a white wide receiver, you almost like, it feels like sometimes you pigeonhole. It's nothing against, I'm not, O'Leary will be their possession receiver. It kind of seems like he will be or could be as well. Because Roman's, the fastest wide receiver in the country. Cornelius Johnson has the size. And, you're talking about him being as an X wide receiver. Is Clemens, is he a possession guy over O'Leary? Not really. I mean, he's got the size. He's kind of a do-it-all as well. Tyler Morris. Morris is a smaller guy. I could put Morris or O'Leary if I don't want to pigeonhole myself into making O'Leary a possession receiver, but I think Tyler Morris could be that guy as well. Zone beater. Yeah, just go out there, run a 20-yard in, and, a little pitch and catch all day, right? Pitch and catch. Throw it over there to the left Round them over there to the right, zone, all day long, 81. Just keep peppering them. Target, 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 right down the field. Here is Mark. Considering all the turnovers, it's really hard to take anything away except the bad plays. Good plays in a sloppy game really don't show much, except maybe an exceptional catch. A sack against a MA is a MA. Missed assignment. Is that what MA stands for? A sack against a missed assignment is an MA. Yeah, really hard to take anything away. I don't know. Like I said it yesterday, I'll say it again, Mark. I'll go overboard a little bit on the spring game. I realize just a little entertainment value. You want to see guys go out there and there's the lens that you're putting it through, like if it was a real game, even if it was a non-conference, then what you're looking at is a spring game. You put all of that, and you understand that in what you're talking about. A lot of turnovers. Didn't like that from the QBs. That's like one of the top things that you would say from McCarthy to Tuttle to Warren. Those three guys. Take care of the football. It's the number one in any coach, any level. That's what they all say. You got to take care of the football, number one. And so let's take care of that. As I'm saying that, I'm going to go in and you want to see one of those turnovers? It just happens to be my guy. Because it's my guy, I'm going to go to the film. Davis Warren back to pass, looking right, throws it down towards the end zone, although Pollard's there, steps in front of it, picks it off. He's at the 10, 15, 20. He's up near the 30-yard line. He is pushed out of bounds. And Myles Pollard, the true sophomore, he baited Davis Warren into that interception. He made the pick. Warren's looking. He thought he was going to the post, threw that shoulder shimmy, and then look at 24. Right in the basket, one of the easiest interceptions he'll have in his long Michigan career. And then you like him turning it up the field and making the play down the sideline, and little bingo for some extra yardage for Michigan. Put his foot in the ground and look at him with the buffs. He's looking good there. 24. Remember the name, Myles Pollard. Nice job for Michigan. Nice interception. That's right. Those buffs feel good. Get out there, young man. Could Pollard possibly make his way into the 2 deep? I'm high on him. Oh, look at Orgy throwing that one out there. I don't really remember that little rocket by Orgy. Oh, Ernest Hausman and the aforementioned Jyaire Hill coming in. I think we need to go back and watch that one again. Come to find out, every little play. You said you can't take too much away from anything. Well, I think what here you see Orgy throwing a rocket, and then you see Hill coming up and making a nice tackle. Let's look at this arm here. On the move. Zips it in there. Ooh, that's a stick. Nice catch by the true freshman Frederick Moore, and even a better tackle by Jyaire Hill. Nice job, young man. I think they'll go back. I don't know if did they watch the film? Sure they do. McBurrow's coming up saying, nice job. Get after it. Jake Butt. What he's saying here is Hill could make his way into the 2 deep. We'll watch one more from Orgy. See what he does here. Oh, he's back to pass. Oh no, nice fake. A nice run for the youngster Benjamin Hall, who went ahead and rumbled and positive yardage, and you saw the footwork there. What wasn't to like there? Answer: nothing. You liked everything that you saw there. Okay, couple more on the feedback. AM mentioning the front seven. Tomorrow, Jim Scarcelli is going to be on. I got a text from Scarcelli. And let's see what it said. It had something to do with the defense. He was looking at the tape. He was looking at the film. And he said, front seven, defense focused. That's what it's going to be for tomorrow. Freaks and monsters. One of the best defensive plays was when Jalen Harrell yelled "move" and the line shifted, and he immediately got a TFL on the backside of a pin and pull. Instincts through the roof. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm with you when it comes down to Harrell. Mark says, "What's with all the players out? Seemed quite a lot for 14 weeks. Healing prep and no real hits." Not really, like precautionary. Half of those guys, if it was, if it was a real game, would have played. And the off season in football is when you're getting your stuff cleaned up, and that kind of stuff. So there's no reason to play through anything. You're not 100, don't play. So I didn't really think that there was an inordinate amount of guys, out. And remember, the one thing is this is a very small negative, and I don't know if it plays into this, but I just thought about it, Mark. Most teams, they'll play 12 games, and then they've got their bowl game. But Michigan played 12, and then they had to come back and play 13 in back-to-back seasons. Playing in the Big Ten championship game, and then they had to play another one in 14. So they play an extra game and an extra week over there. So maybe that has something to do with it. So I don't know. That was just a thought. And like I said, I don't think there was an inordinate amount of guys that were they're out. Venice, my man, and one of those magical cities in the world, Venice, says, "Mark, worry about Day getting fired when he loses 3 straight." Yeah. Oh, third base. Well, look at that. It kind of matches up. Third base loses 3 in a row. And they will not be able to handle it. Harbaugh lost 5. And man, even the most dyed-in-the-wool Wolverine fans were like, let's move on. So, yeah. And that's what all Ohio State fans say. You think if we lost 5 in a row, our coach would still be around? They like throw that in Michigan's face. Well, we'll see. We'll see how you guys react when it's 3 in a row. My guess is like what Venice is saying. It ain't happening. Mark getting third bases back, saying, he got to the college football playoff, lost on a field goal. Here's the one thing, boys and girls, let's end the show on. And it's something to think about, and we saw it play out. I've watched it play out my entire life. I remember when I was young, people would say, the only thing that matters is the Ohio State game. And I'd be like, yeah, you guys just say that because it's the last game of the year and it's for a championship. But even though you have to do everything up to that point, you can't lose to Ohio State. It is everything. It does mean everything. And Harbaugh, in those first 5 years, the 6th year was whatever that season was, 2 and 4. Is that how many games they played during the pandemic, whatever it was? But the previous 5 seasons, there were some good years in there. But he lost to Ohio State. I don't need to remind everybody of that. And it's a great example of what it means. Like, you can go out there, people say, you want to win, lose all your games and beat Ohio State, it's a successful season. No, it's not. It feels like that. Harbaugh, this guy, was doing everything out there, but he was losing to Ohio State. And then now he's gone out there and he's beat him twice. And look at him now. Guys, he's on the top of the mountain. You got to beat Ohio State. There was a coach down at Ohio State back in the day, and he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. His name was John Cooper. John Cooper was a Southern gentleman, but when he talked about Michigan, Those guys up there, I can't beat me. He couldn't even say their name. He started as soon as it came out of his mouth. Michigan, we got a pretty good team. We're going to find out. He couldn't beat Michigan. That's why he was out. Couldn't beat Michigan. You got to beat Michigan. You got to beat Ohio State. Right now, that's why Michigan's on the top of the world. That first year, I heard a lot of people nationally, it was such a great win, Michigan being at home, and then they lost to Georgia. All these people nationally like, Michigan didn't care. Michigan beat Ohio State. Nothing mattered. They went to the college football playoff. It was like gravy. Didn't really matter. I think there was a good point to that. Beating Ohio State, that's one of the great wins in Michigan history. Georgia was great, but it was like, I didn't, I say this, like, I didn't care that Michigan lost to Georgia. I cared. But it wasn't that bad. Now, last year, and they all said it like, okay, now it's different. It was like, all right, you broke the seal. And they beat Ohio State again, this time on the road. Amazing. It was great again. If you thought the first time, 2021 was great. Oh, last year, I got news for you. It felt like it was like the same thing, and but better in a different way because it was on the road. And it meant, like, one time, as great as 2021 was, the victory, it had been a long time, and it kind of felt like, a little bit like Haley's Comet. Like, okay, Michigan did it one time. And, so savor it. It's going to be awesome. But when you do it 2 times in a row, and you do it on the road, all the things that you like to say about, hey, Michigan's back, when you do it 2 times in a row, there's nothing anybody can say. And now that Michigan has their quarterback coming back, their team looks stacked. The game is in Ann Arbor. Everything is pointing towards Michigan when it comes to Michigan and Ohio State. I'll say it again, something I said early in the show. It's a great time to be alive if you're a Michigan fan, the way that they're doing it. I thought today I'm going to just run through these 5. Maybe it'll be just a 10, 15-minute podcast. But the people came in strong. Here's Buckeye Mark. What's he saying? OSU has a lot. Don't be fooled because Michigan balled out twice in a row. Jason is not dead. I'm just joking around with you, Buckeye Mark. He's calling the game now competitive. But Mark is getting a little rebound, getting a little resistance here. Ben is saying that they're going to put 40 up again. It is, look at this. Delusional. Okay. Hey, Mark, I know you're a Michigan fan, but even a little slight, twist in anything, and Michigan fans are coming after you. It's always a good time to talk about Ohio State. Gets people fired up. Gets them going. Just remember I don't know what year it would have been, but old Brent Musburger, it'd be the Michigan-Ohio State game. He'd just roll out that, "You are looking live." And I must have been, 6 or 7 years old. And the way Musburger, and he still does it, there is nothing like this game. And you just watch it like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And Musburger was right. It is held up. It is the greatest thing ever. But when when you lose the greatest thing ever, woo! I don't like talking about that part. Right now, that's why this particular podcast for the next 5 months, it's still top of the mountain. You're going to bring something up about Ohio State? Bring it on. All right. Tomorrow, Jim Scarcelli will join us. He's going to be talking about Michigan front seven. I can't wait till 1 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Do what I ask you to do, please. Tell your Michigan friends to say, hey, there's a podcast every day if you like Michigan talk. They're talking Michigan on the Maize and Blue Review every day at 1 o'clock for an hour and 15 minutes, not a half hour. I don't care about politics. Michigan, Maize and Blue Review. So if you can get your friends to subscribe, I like them to watch, but hey, if they just want to subscribe, that's fine too. Comment, hit the up buttons, all of those things. I thank you for doing that. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we will see you. I got a last comment. Dave's coming in. Would I rather Michigan play their worst games against the four-letter state team like we often do against MSU? Okay, wait a second. Would I rather have Michigan play their worst game against the four-letter state team, MSU? The four-letter state team, OSU, Ohio, HOHO. Yeah, I don't know if you're telling me that. I don't know the question. You'll have to spell that one out a little bit for me. Sorry, it was right at the tail end. The winning a national championship is what it's all about. But there's now that we're getting into, and this will be the last year where you get four. We saw Ohio State do it. Ohio State could have won a national championship this year and lost to Michigan. That would be a crazy thing. I'm going to cross that bridge when I come to it, just like Underwood and Davis and McCarthy, and who's going to start, and who's going to be playing against Texas when it comes down, to Michigan next year. I know Underwood is not going to be eligible, but I think about 2 years ago, Michigan losing to Michigan State, but, in the end, it ended up turning out. Now that you're going to have 12 teams in there, hell, you could lose both and go on and win the national championship. And at the end, you'd be standing there like, well, this champagne. I don't know if it's going to, I think it's going to taste, I don't really like champagne, but I think it'll taste, it'll be fun. Popping the cork. Is that the question? Oh, this one. Yeah, them too. I'd just rather just see Michigan go ahead and just win them all. I don't like doing any of this like backdoor, got to get back and anything else. Ufer always said Ohio was a four-letter word. He did. He called it a snake pit. Bunch of truck drivers down there chewing tobacco, hairspray, lottery tickets. Ufer would give it all to him. There's nobody like Bob Ufer. There was nobody like Bob Ufer before or after. He remains a one of a kind. We'll see you at 1 o'clock for the second time now tomorrow. So long, everybody.